Thank you for joining us today on our weekly deep dive topic.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Cody.
And today we're going to be talking about chronic pain and mental health from a spiritual perspective.
So we're not here to give you advice about, working with your doctors or working with your mental health practitioners. We're here to talk about it from a deeper perspective.
Yeah.
A lived experience.
Absolutely.
In different ways.
Yes.
Very different ways.
Because often we look at healing like there's... number one, we often look at healing the wrong way. We look at healing like there's going to be an end point.
Or that we have to, there's something that we have to fix and we're going to have the
get to that point. And really, we have to really invite in with chronic pain and mental health that how do we approach the healing when there's no cure, when there's no end.
And when there's no other side to it.
Right.
So I also am going to pull in a little bit of the perspective of somebody who is dealing with a loved one who has chronic pain or has mental health. How do you also handle it within yourself when you know the loved one isn't going to necessarily have a cure or there is no end or end goal? That also can be really challenging on the other side.
Right. So, here's an example. Hi, I'm Heather and I have chronic pain. I have rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogren's syndrome. And so, right now, I'm leaning back a little bit further than Cody because I have a pillow behind my back because my RA is screaming in my back because I've been doing computer work and yada yada here today. And so my back was like, put a pillow there. And so I'm sitting back. Okay? Sitting back, happy back. Happy back.
Supporting ourselves. So, really, from my perspective on chronic pain is that for a long time, I looked at chronic pain like this horrible, awful thing. This thing had happened to me. It was always going to be with me, and I freaking hated it. And it's kind of like it's your curse.
Yeah,
I looked at it.
I looked at it like a curse that I also didn't want to talk about because if someone looks at me, I look pretty much like you would not know that I have a couple of chronic conditions. Okay, but then, and I'm pretty active, right? I work multiple jobs. I like to be active. I'm a generator in human design.
She likes to go.
I like to go. So when I wouldn't tell anyone that I had chronic conditions and I wasn't able to go, they were like, what's wrong with Heather?
Yeah, it would become more serious.
And it's more serious, so it felt more daunting to me. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is wrong with me.
And there's more shame and there's more guilt.
And it just compiles. And so I had to get really real with myself that this is what I was given in this life for me. And that is a hard pill to swallow. When you were a dancer, but blew out the cartilage in your knee for no reason other than the fact you had RA.
It's hard. We don't deny the difficulty of that. But shifting to the perspective, and I would like for you to talk to this, Heather, of what is the difference in your life going from this is a curse that's happened to you versus this is something that is here for you in your life and this is a path you follow in your life for you.
Okay. So number one, when I shifted the mindset, right, I stopped trying to cover up all my feelings about chronic illness. So I no longer covered it up with alcohol, which does no good, or drugs, also does no good, or food, also doesn't do any good, and shame and guilt and all the things, okay? So I stopped that. I had to get, and that took some time. It wasn't just like one day I woke up and said, okay, I'm all done with all this pile. No, I had to pick at the pieces of the pile.
And unwind the thing.
And I also had to get honest, and not just with myself, but with people that I could very much trust, a few people in the beginning, and then a whole bunch of viewers now. So it's a progression, right? I found that the more that I was open with people, it no longer mattered if they understood or if they didn't, because I understood my chronic pain, what I was going through, so that I could start to heal the physical along with the emotional and mental and all of that, and the spiritual aspects. Because oftentimes, people will not always understand. When you have a mental condition or you have a physical condition that doesn't present, okay? My arm's not outside. Cast, they're not going to understand because people are selfish. I'm sorry. We're all selfish to some degree. We all are.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to understand. If you do not have one of these things, it's hard to understand what a person can go through on a daily basis with it. It's our job, though, to some degree to educate others. So I started to educate others. I would let them know how RA affects my body, how Sjogren's affects my body, why, even though I'm holistic and all these things, I still get sick several times a year because my immune system is not like everyone else's. And I found compassion from people that were very, very close to me.
Right.
And people that were not compassionate towards what I was going through, I let them go.
Yeah, they don't need to be around anymore.
They don't need to be around anymore. I don't have to, and I also don't have to explain myself a million times.
Yeah.
So you let those people go. So that's like with any healing. Sometimes we have to change our people, places, and things. There's certain jobs, like I used to be a chef. I can no longer work in a kitchen. That is for my mental, emotional, and physical health.
Cannot happen.
It just can't happen. And so I had to reevaluate my life, but instead of it being this, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, it became this, what can I invite in? And now I have careers that, I absolutely love. And I had this whole experience of being a chef, and I was able to shut the door. And then I was able to do another career, and I shut the door on that one. And then I'm doing the new thing now. So it's all perspective, and it's all inviting in.
And I think that's the component of the spiritual mindset that we both wanted to bring into this topic of something that is with us, chronic, mental or physical. Yeah. And that is, on a deep spiritual soul level, it's actually teaching us, it's giving us something that we may not entirely understand, but maybe if we can just suspend our disbelief or our old beliefs enough to be willing to see how it can be here for us, to help us, to teach us, to guide us.
Yeah.
That it can shift the overall experiencing of it. It doesn't necessarily take it away, but it certainly can shift our experience of it and the experience of it within our family and our community and the people around us.
Because we might not be able to, this could be for any person on this planet, you might not be able to do something a certain way. That doesn't mean you cannot do it at all.
Yep.
Okay, so oftentimes, especially when you're in chronic pain because it hurts, or you're in mental pain that hurts. All pain hurts.
We can get in different ways.
Yeah, we can get in a mindset of, well, I just can't. And we draw a red line at, well, I just can't go to the zoo with my family, okay? Because I'm not going to be able to walk around the entire zoo. I'm just not going to be able to do it. Forget it. I'm just not going to do it at all, okay? But you really like going to the zoo.
Or you really want to spend time with your family.
Yeah. So why don't we invite in explaining to your family, I can't do the whole zoo, but I can do maybe 30 minutes of the zoo with you.
Yeah.
So I'll do 30 minutes of the zoo, and then I'll go chill and hang out or sit down or something. Or can we just go to the zoo for 30 minutes? And then we understand we can come back a couple times a year instead of once a year and doing the whole zoo.
Absolutely.
Maybe that would actually invite in a better experience for your whole family.
You don't know.
What's beyond what we think are our limitations?
And what it can be teaching you at a spiritual level, although we don't entirely know, and I can't say in this case exactly, but it could be teaching you having balance. having grace? What does it mean to really have grace for yourself? What does it mean to ask for support? Is it teaching you what vulnerability really is, how to experience vulnerability, how to teach vulnerability to your kids or to your family? How is it teaching you about intimacy, to be able to have to ask for those things?
Yeah.
You know, there's a multifaceted way of looking at what this can be teaching you and providing for you, that only through the challenge or the suffering can you really get to it. So if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about from my perspective with my mom. So my mom had severe chronic pain. She had it for many, many years. And it was quite a struggle between the two of us, only because it was both physical and mental and emotional. Because, of course, the physical impacted her ability to feel like she had purpose, which then impacted her ability to feel alive and feel like she could live, which then led to the depression. And it was just kind of this really slow decline. And from my perspective, although I have not dealt with chronic pain, I do have a chronic health issue that I deal with. It is vertigo. It's, you know, it comes and it goes, and lately it's been more consistent. But when I was going through this with my mom, I didn't have an understanding of what chronic pain every day felt like. I did not. But I knew that she could have a different experience if she would just be willing to try and see it a little bit differently. But I had to learn in this situation, my own spiritual awakening was about surrendering and just holding space for wherever and whatever was going on with her in any given moment. And through the course of several years, we really transformed our relationship. And it was through an act of grace. It was through an act of surrendering. It was through an act of honoring that, hey, I hear you. I don't understand. You're right. But I'm here to listen and I love you. And it was also around creating healthy boundaries for myself, ways that I needed to take care of myself, because there for a while I kept getting into that codependent caretaker, trying to help, trying to fix, trying to change, becoming resentful because they weren't doing it, it wasn't working, insert whatever, we can't fix it. Again, coming from this perspective of I wanted a cure, I wanted her to be out of pain, I wanted to fix it because I hated watching her go through a slow decline in suffering. But my journey was really about taking ownership for what I could control, which was the time I had with her and how I managed to show up for that time. And also being very real and vulnerable in saying there are certain things I am totally a person you can come to talk about that. There are other things, I am not that person. In fact, I shouldn't be that person. In fact, you need somebody, a therapist, a counselor, a doctor, a life coach, like somebody outside of your circle to give you support in this area. That person is not me because of this mother-daughter relationship. It's not healthy. Especially when she wanted to vent or have issues with my stepfather, which I love and adore. So there were moments where I had to get clear with boundaries. And for me, that was the spiritual path and the spiritual journey in learning how to delicately, lovingly, graciously support, nurture, and have safe and clear boundaries in the process of this. And so now with my own health challenge of something that is now turning into a little bit more chronic, I've kind of come to the realization like, wow, maybe what if there isn't a cure to this? What if I end up having vertigo the rest of my life?
Yeah.
What will I do with my life then? And there was that moment for me where I could see I can make a choice to feel like this is happening to me and feel frustrated. And sometimes I wake up and I'm frustrated and don't want it to be happening.
It's normal.
It's very normal. But being in the grace of her experience and how she has embraced why this is happening for her has also taught me a lot about embracing it for myself. So a lot of what I've learned over the last few years, I've taken wholeheartedly and said, all right, this is here for me. It is here to teach me something profound. I'm going to fall madly in love with it and see what it shows me. That's a completely different way of looking and addressing a chronic issue than looking at it as this is a horrible thing that has happened to me and I just now have to deal with it.
Right. And yeah, it is a whole lot. When you wake up and you feel like the entire room is a spinny whirly ride, That's a lot. It can get super frustrating.
And there are times where it's so bad. I know my limit, and if it's so bad, when I turn my head, I'm spinning. I can't drive. I do not drive.
Right.
I cancel my appointments. My day shuts down. And I can look at that as a loss of income, frustrated that I can't do my job, all of these things. But I also have a tendency to look at it and be like, whew, okay, well, I guess the universe wanted me to have a day off today.
Right.
So I'm going to rest.
And that's part of it. When we keep continuously fighting against it, we are going to be fighting an uphill battle constantly. When we can come from grace and from another side in looking at it, whether we have a loved one that has chronic issues or we ourselves are dealing with things in chronic health, it's the perspective of it. Because let me tell you, it was a game changer when I was able to look at things from a different perspective of, well, this is for whatever reason, even if it sucks right now, happening for me.
Yeah.
It changes it, because when sometimes I get up out of bed in the middle of the night, I will hit the floor. Okay, guys, my legs don't always work the way that they're supposed to. But then I realized when some other friends of mine ended up with chronic conditions and autoimmune conditions in the past 2 years, and I was able to be there for them and tell them they're not alone, that was why it happened to me before.
So we also share this with you because on both sides, whether you have a loved one who has chronic pain or you yourself are going through some form of chronic illness, you are not alone. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to find a support system that will help nurture.
That was a heavy one.
That will help nurture you, that will help believe in you, that has walked your path before, and can be there for you. And if we need to be those souls for you, then we
can
will.
sit there with you, trust.
On both sides.
Because we get it.
Because it can be a lot to also, not know what it's like to have chronic pain or a chronic illness and take care of somebody that you love and you want them to feel better. It can be a lot on that side too. So You're not alone in this. There are many ways to look at this differently. And oftentimes when you do look at it differently, it does change it. So I want to show you, on the podcast, you might not be able to see this, but on the video, you'll be able to see this. So I'll try and describe what I'm doing so you can hear it. But I'm going to have Heather push her hand really hard against my hand, like she's trying to push me away.
Okay.
So if I'm fighting her and I'm pushing against her, it creates a lot of this tension between us.
It's a lot of tension.
Right. There's a lot of pushing, right?
Uh-huh.
But if I allow her to push in and I hug her, right? I allow that energy to come in and I embrace it.
Yeah.
I actually get to use the energy and it gets to turn into something else.
Right.
So I use that kind of, allegory, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's really great because with a lot of this, when we're dealing with long-term things, we have to let energy continuously flow through our body.
Move through.
It's got to move. Like if you saw the video, I was crying on the video. It's some energy moving through my body. And with these conditions and things in our life, no matter what you're going through, letting that energy really flow.
Letting it move. Letting it cascade over you. Almost embracing it so that you're not pushing against it, which is only creating more friction.
Right.
You're allowing it to actually completely move. And in that embracing, it's kind of like you are embracing, why is it here for you? What is it here to teach you? What is it actually here to give you? What if it's here to give you more than curse you? That's a really profound question to ponder.
Yeah, and Cody taught me one of the best things ever, that when you have chronic pain or you have mental stuff going on, whatever, and you may feel like breaking is going to happen, and a break would be the worst thing ever. Like you're going to lose it completely. It's all going to be gone.
It's going to be awful.
Awful. She taught me that even if you break for a minute, doesn't mean you break for a lifetime.
Oof.
So sometimes we have to have those moments where you're frustrated, where you cry about it, where you're like, yeah.
And you throw the tantrum or you throw your pity party.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, throw your pity party. Give it a time limit though.
Yes. Give it a time limit. Set a time limit for it. reach out for help. Put extra tools in your toolbox to help you get through it.
So we do want to also kind of finish this off with some actionable steps. We always try and give you some actionable steps.
Yes.
And, you know, the one that I think we both want to start with, which is get clear on where do you need the most healing? Like, what is it that's really going on? Is it chronic pain? Is it mental health? Is it both? Is it both? I'm always going to argue that it's both.
Or is it some spiritual stuff? Same. I'm always going to do the same thing, because not until I dealt with a lot of other stuff did I actually deal with my chronic pain and being able to deal with it better.
Yes.
And so where do you need the healing? And really dig deep. Where are some of those places that you're like, I might not be ready for this yet, but I know that this area from my way back past, I still need to deal with.
I need to do some healing.
And I'm uncomfortable, but I'm going to write it down.
I'm going to write it down.
Then I know I can get some help with that.
So the actionable step is to write down all the areas in your life where you feel like you need some healing, some form of healing or support or help. And then really list out, you know, you're listing out both the mental and the physical issues on both sides. Mm-hmm. And then you get to actively choose first, which ones do you want to work on right now?
Yes.
And I would encourage you, actually, I'm sure we both will encourage you to ask your gut or your intuition, not just your little, what's going on between your ears.
Yes.
Because they can lie to you. Your little brain, your little gremlins, they can lie to you.
Oh, sometimes it means the best, guys, but sometimes, I mean, it's the brain, the evolution,
ego,
it's kind of stayed like this for a little while, and
fights
your gut's more like wee, and your brain's just like I don't know. That's my example.
That must be hers.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so really, you know, listen to your gut and choose which area you want to work on, and then maybe list out some action steps you can take to work on that area or to work on that particular healing thing that you want, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And then if you don't know, if you list out something you want, maybe there's a trauma in your past and you really want help with it, and you're not really sure who you're supposed to talk to or what you're supposed to talk to, then maybe start looking up support for trauma healing or support for shoulder healing. And maybe there'll be an article that'll be like, oh, massage therapist can help with your shoulder healing, or oh, this therapy thing will really help with trauma healing. You can start to kind of pick and choose. And again, come back to the gut. Make sure you're checking in with your gut about these things. So
yeah. Do you have any apps? Everybody loves apps.
I do. I'm so glad you asked. So one of my all-time most favorite apps for anyone that is dealing with chronic pain or mental health challenges, mental health chronic issues. And that is the app Curable. Now, we are not sponsored by them.
Nope,
this is not a sponsored post. This is strictly, I have used this myself.
Cody likes it.
I like it. I have had my clients use it. It is extremely helpful. A lot of the stuff that they talk about or they walk you through in Curable in that app is very similar to the work that I do. So it's also why I kind of love it. But it's just a great app, and it walks you through different meditations, different mindfulness practices. It gives you some new tools in your little bag. The other app that I absolutely love, and I've used this a little bit, so not a lot, and again, we are not sponsored by this app. It's just an app that I like and I use. It's called Tapping Solution. And it's the EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, which is a tapping technique, and it taps on certain meridian lines, certain acupressure lines, while you're also saying basically a kind of mantra. And what it does is it basically is like rewiring the energy pathway so that you have a different response. So the Tapping Solution is just a great app because there's like certain areas that you tap, and it kind of goes into all of that. For me to like do it all with you right now, it'll take another 30 minutes, so I'm not going to do that. But if you go to that app, it'll give you new ways to work on, and this is really anybody with chronic pain, anxiety, depression, struggling with physical chronic pain, autoimmune issues, anything that kind of is consistent. It's just a different way to work with it, to work and really see how it's here for you.
And one thing I want to point out, it's not an app. There might be an app for it, I don't know. Get really clear on your gut health.
Yes.
This is something new that I mean, it's been around forever, but it's newer to me in the last year. Get really clear on your gut health and what that means. Not just taking a prebiotic or a probiotic, but like what is going on inside your guts. Because it's going to affect your immune system and a lot of other stuff. When they say our brain is in our gut, they are for real. The gut is a very powerful part of our body, if not one of the most powerful parts of our body.
Amen.
So, it affects your brain and everything else.
Everything else.
Yes.
All right, on that note.
Yeah, on that note, if you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. Share with your friends.
Please share with your friends.
Especially if you have friends that are dealing with things such as chronic pain. If they need a perspective of people who've been there.
And also share it with them if you don't know what they're going through, so you can maybe open up the dialogue to say, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but I hear you, I see you, I love you. How can I support you? Sometimes that's the best question you can ask somebody who's going through chronic pain is just, how can I be here for you? Sometimes that in and of itself will be enough. So please check us out next week as well as we dive into quick fixes and why they don't work.
Yeah, we've all tried them. We've all been there, and they don't work for the long term. So we're going to deep dive into why that is and really how to look at the more long-term solutions.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one. Bye.